Mother Superior's gone from us forever, and Sister Act can never fully come back together one more time. Only Hollywood back then would dare make a movie like this. A lounge singer accidentally witnesses a mafia hit, gets hidden in a convent to stay alive, then somehow turns a church choir into a box office sensation. It sounds like a crazy idea, and yet Sister Act became one of the most beloved movies of the early 90s. Disney tried more than once to bring it back. But time has been too cruel taking Mother Superior away from us, and a lot of the cast went through lives even more tragic than people realize. One survived addiction and almost died from sepsis. Another passed away after cancer and depression, the kinds of things we never saw on screen. So after 34 years, where are they now? And stick around till the end because I have 5 little facts saved for the most loyal Sister Act fans. Number 1. Whoopi Goldberg as Dolores Van Cartier / Sister Mary Clarence. Let's start with the woman who was not originally written for Dolores at all, Whoopi Goldberg. Sister Act was first developed by Disney for Bette Midler, but when Midler left the project, Whoopi stepped in and locked her name to the movie for good. When the film came out in 1992, she was 37. This year, she is 71. More importantly, she came into this role not as some face hoping to get lucky, but as a star who already had an Oscar nomination for The Color Purple and an Academy Award for Ghost. Sister Act later ranked number 3 at the domestic box office in the United States in 1992, earning over $139.6 million in North America. And from that point on, Dolores was almost impossible to separate from the name Whoopi Goldberg. But what makes Whoopi worth opening this list with is not just the glow of fame. It is that her real life was way heavier and sadder than a lot of people think. When she was little, her mother had a mental breakdown, was hospitalized for 2 years, and went through electroshock treatment to the point where, when she came home, she did not even recognize her kids. Growing up, Whoopi was once a single mother living on welfare. Then in the 80s, she fell into cocaine, and she herself admitted she hit rock bottom before she managed to pull herself back. Even behind the scenes on Sister Act, things were not smooth at all. Whoopi clashed hard with Disney during production, so much so that Carrie Fisher had to be brought in to rewrite dialogue for her. That is the kind of detail that feels very Hollywood, but it also says one clear thing: Dolores was not handed to Whoopi peacefully. She took it, reshaped it, and made the whole movie move to her rhythm. The years after that were not gentle either. Whoopi went through 3 marriages, and all of them fell apart. Her mother died in 2010, and her brother died in 2015. In 2019, she nearly died from pneumonia and sepsis. In 2022, ABC suspended her from The View for 2 weeks after her wrong comments about the Holocaust. And still to this day, she is a moderator on that show, still standing under the lights, still an essential part of any conversation about Sister Act. When it comes down to it, the most impressive thing about Whoopi Goldberg is not how famous she once was. It is that she went through all that heartbreak, illness, and controversy and still refused to step away from the stage. Number 2, Maggie Smith as Mother Superior / Reverend Mother. This might be the name that makes me saddest, because while Sister Act 3 was still being written, Maggie Smith passed away, and Whoopi Goldberg said the project had to be adjusted after that loss. That detail alone shows just how important Mother Superior was. She was not just the head of the convent in the movie. She was the one who gave the story discipline, weight, and a solid anchor in the middle of all of Dolores's chaos. Maggie Smith was born in 1934. When Sister Act came out in 1992, she was 58. Before taking this role, she was already a major name in British film and theater, with 2 Oscars and a Dame title since 1990. In other words, Sister Act was not the movie that made Maggie Smith a star. It was the other way around. The movie benefited enormously from having an actress like her in the frame, but Maggie Smith's real life was not smooth at all. Her first marriage to Robert Stevens gave her 2 sons, Chris Larkin and Toby Stevens, but it also brought a whole lot of pain. Stevens once tried to take his own life, and their private life cracked under mental health struggles and affairs, and that marriage eventually ended. After that, Maggie married playwright Beverly Cross and found a calmer stretch of life. But even that peace did not last forever. Cross died in 1998 after 23 years together. Years later, Maggie said that living on alone sometimes felt meaningless because there was no one left to share things with. For someone as private as she was, that line feels sadder than a whole lot of open grieving. Then came illness. Maggie Smith had breast cancer and went through treatment while still working. She once said that battle made her lose confidence, fear going back on stage, and at times think about death. And still, she kept acting, kept working, kept growing older in front of the audience without turning her pain into a performance. She died on September 27, 2024 at 89 in a London hospital, surrounded by family and friends. To me, what makes Maggie Smith's loss so painful is not just that we lost a great actress. It is that we lost exactly the kind of woman old cinema hardly ever gave a stern private season, and the more you look back, the more irreplaceable she feels. Number 3, Kathy Najimy as Sister Mary Patrick. Kathy Najimy was not somebody Hollywood pampered from the start. When Sister Act came out in 1992, she was 35, and this year she is 69. At the time, Kathy was performing the Kathy and Mo Show in San Francisco, a stage comedy that was openly feminist and rooted in civil rights, not sitting around waiting for some cute supporting role in a big studio movie. To get Sister Mary Patrick, she had to fly back and forth between San Francisco and Los Angeles about 8 times to audition, and at certain points she paid out of pocket. Kathy also said she drew inspiration from Mary Hart on Entertainment Tonight to create that always bright, always eager way this character talks. That is such a great detail to hold on to because it shows this role did not just randomly land in her lap. She figured it out herself, then turned it into the most remembered screen role of her career. In real life, Kathy Najimy is a lot more direct than Sister Mary Patrick's carefree vibe, so she has said very clearly that she is a mother and an activist first, and an actress second. Kathy had already been doing social activism since her teens, and years later, she still kept those priorities in that exact order. The strongest detail in her personal life is that she openly talked about having an abortion at 19 while working 2 jobs and attending college full-time. Kathy did not tell that story to shock people. She told it because she wanted to make it plain that some decisions save a life from sliding into a completely different direction. That kind of honesty is really rare in Hollywood, especially from a well-known actress. She's also spoken a lot about the pressure women face around age and appearance, and she has never played pretend about how hard it is to grow older in public. After Sister Act, Kathy went on to Hocus Pocus Veronica's Closet and voiced Peggy Hill in King of the Hill. But what is really admirable is that she never let her career swallow who she was. She has a strong family life with Dan Finnerty has a daughter named Salmia keeps speaking up for the things she believes in, and even after breaking ribs while filming Hocus Pocus 2, she still finished nearly half the rest of the movie. That really is impressive. Number 4, Mary Wickes as Sister Mary Lazarus. Mary Wickes had the kind of face that fans of old American movies would recognize instantly, even if not everybody remembered her name. When Sister Act came out in 1992, she was already 82. She was born in 1910, and by the time she stepped into Sister Mary Lazarus, Mary Wickes had nothing left to prove. She had already built a 67-year career across stage, film, and television. The Los Angeles Times called her a veteran actress who had worked for almost her entire life, and Sister Act was just one of the loveliest returns at the tail end of that career. She was even nominated for an American Comedy Award in 1993 for this very role, then came back again in Sister Act 2. What makes Mary Wickes so memorable is that she did not rise as some glamorous star. Her real name was Mary Isabella Wickenhauser. She was a brilliant student, skipped 2 grades, graduated from Washington University with 2 majors, English, literature, and political science, then turned to acting, even though she had originally planned to study law. Her whole life, she was often cast as secretaries, nurses, nuns, teachers, or maids, the kind of roles that are not planted in the center of the frame but still give the whole movie its backbone. That is exactly why Sister Mary Lazarus fit her so well. Mary Wickes spent almost her whole career playing women who were stern, dry, sharp, and very hard to dismiss. But the saddest part of Mary Wickes' life was off-screen. She never married, never had children, and when she died in 1995 at 85, the Los Angeles Times wrote that she had no living relatives left. She was hospitalized for breathing problems, then during that hospital stay she fell and broke her hip, had surgery, and finally died from complications after the operation. It was a very quiet ending for somebody who had worked almost right up to the very last minute. Even her final role voicing Laverne in The Hunchback of Notre Dame was released after she died. What I admire about Mary Wickes is that she left quietly, but left behind a very clean mark. After her death, she left $2 million to Washington University to create a memorial library fund in honor of her parents. To me, that ending fits Mary Wickes perfectly. Not loud, not showy, just somebody who stayed with the work all the way through and left something decent behind. Number 5, Jenifer Lewis as Michelle. Jenifer Lewis only shows up briefly in Dolores' old life, but looking back at Sister Act, after more than 3 decades, this is still a name you cannot skip over. She was born in 1957 in Kinloch, Missouri. When the movie came out in 1992, she was 35. This year, she is 69. Before television audiences got used to her face, Jenifer came up through the stage, made it to Broadway in 1979, and in the early 80s, she was also singing backup for Bette Midler. But the darkest part of Jenifer Lewis's story was always off-screen. In her memoir, The Mother of Black Hollywood, she talked very openly about poverty, about being diagnosed with bipolar disorder at 33, and about sex addiction, something she had to learn to name instead of hide. The Washington Post also noted that she had been living with that diagnosis since 1990, went through nearly 2 decades of therapy, and spent years on medication before she became truly more stable. Then came another kind of pain, the kind that feels brutally real. She was conned out of about $50,000 by a romance scammer, and that story later even made it onto American Greed. For Jenifer Lewis, scandal did not come from Hollywood. It came from the very places where she thought she could trust somebody. Then, in 2022, life hit her again. Jenifer fell from a balcony about 10 feet high in Tanzania, fractured. Her hip socket had to undergo 9 hours of surgery, had part of her hip replaced with titanium, ended up in the ICU, needed blood transfusions, and spent months learning how to walk again. People quoted her saying that at one point, she could not even remember how to walk anymore. And still she came back, still talked openly about all of it. To me, Jenifer Lewis is memorable not because of how long she appears in Sister Act. She is memorable because in real life, she has lived more fiercely than a whole stack of roles put together. Number 6, Wendy Makkena as Sister Mary Robert. Wendy Makkena is a really interesting case in Sister Act because audiences remember Sister Mary Robert crystal clear. But in real life, she almost never lived like some loud, flashy star. Wendy was born in 1958. When the movie came out in 1992, she was 34. This year, she is 68. Before being remembered for Sister Act and Sister Act 2, Wendy already had a solid stage background, including Broadway appearances in Pygmalion, Lend Me a Tenor, and Sideman. In other words, this was not some young woman who just happened to slip into a movie. This was a properly trained actress who came up through the real craft. The strongest detail about Wendy Makkena lives right in the audience's memory. Sister Mary Robert is the shyest nun in the movie, but she is also the one who has the clearest breakthrough moment. But there is one thing a lot of people do not know. Sister Mary Robert's singing voice in Sister Act was not performed by Wendy. The AFI clearly notes that the singing for this role was revoiced by Andrea Robinson. That is the kind of truth that makes people stop for a second, because for years, a lot of viewers thought they were hearing Wendy herself sing. Even at the 25-year reunion, Wendy said she had been really nervous about having to sing at the audition. Wendy has never given the audience some scandal-filled private life to gossip about. She's a pretty private person. After Sister Act, Wendy kept working steadily, continuing to appear in film, television, and theater. Alongside acting, she has also been introduced as a musician, an acting teacher, a voiceover artist, and someone who runs the non-dairy ice cream brand Ruby Rockets with her daughter. Number 7. Harvey Keitel as Vince LaRocca. Harvey Keitel plays Vince LaRocca, a married casino owner, Dolores' lover, and also the man behind the killing that sends the whole story crashing into witness protection. When the movie came out in 1992, Harvey Keitel was 53. This year he is 87, and by that point he was already one of the toughest faces in American film, with Mean Streets taxi driver Thelma and Louise, and even an Oscar nomination for Bugsy behind him. What makes Harvey Keitel worth talking about is not just that hard edge he has on screen. In real life, he carried something completely opposite for years. Keitel said he had a very severe stutter as a child, so bad that it was one of the deepest shames of his childhood and something other kids used to make fun of him for. The Washington Post also quoted him saying that stutter stayed with him for many years, and even as an adult, it never fully went away. His personal life was not nearly as calm as people might think either. His split with Lorraine Bracco led to a bitter, long, and very public custody battle. Then later on, he got pulled into another child support dispute involving his son, Hudson. By 2017, Reuters was even reporting that he lost a lawsuit against E-Trade over a $1.5 million ad contract. And still, Harvey Keitel never disappeared. He just kept working, kept aging, and kept that same rough edge the whole time. Number 8, Bill Nunn as Lieutenant Eddie Souther in Sister Act. He plays Lieutenant Eddie Souther, the police officer who takes Dolores' statement and puts her into witness protection after she sees Joey kill Ernie with her own eyes. The AFI even notes that Eddie's team had been tracking Vince and his crew for 18 months. Put simply, in the middle of a movie full of singing mafia guys and chaos, Bill Nunn is the one who keeps the story standing on solid ground. When the movie came out in 1992, he was 39. What matters is that Bill Nunn had that same kind of solid foundation in real life, too. He was born in 1953 in Pittsburgh, the son of Bill Nunn, Jr., a major figure at the Pittsburgh Courier, who later became a legendary scout for the Steelers. Nunn studied at Morehouse College, knew Spike Lee from back then, and came into film for real a little later than some people do. But once he got there, he left a very clear mark, especially as Radio Raheem in Do the Right Thing. His private life did not come with loud scandals. He had a wife named Donna, had 2 daughters, worked steadily, and lived pretty quietly. So the saddest part of Bill Nunn's story came just as quietly. In 2016, he died at home in Pittsburgh after battling leukemia at the age of 62. Number 9, Joseph Maher as Bishop O'Hara / Monsignor O'Hara. You remember Bishop O'Hara, right? He is the priest from the parish who stands with Eddie Souther to persuade Reverend Mother to let Dolores stay at the convent. It is not a huge role, but it is a very important link in the chain. Without him, the connection between the police, the parish, and the convent would not move as smoothly as it does. Joseph Maher was born in 1933 in Westport, Ireland. When Sister Act came out in 1992, he was 59. By the time he took this role, he was already a truly respected name on stage. He moved to Canada in 1956, worked for an oil company, then drifted into acting without really coming through the usual formal training route. After that, he moved to New York and built a very strong stage career with 3 Tony nominations, a Drama Desk Award, an Obie Award, and a reputation especially tied to Joe Orton, plays like Lute and entertaining Mr. Sloan. Joseph Maher's public life did not come with the kind of noisy scandals people gossip about. The saddest part of his story came near the end. On July 17, 1998, Joseph Maher died in Los Angeles from a brain tumor at the age of 64. He died fairly young, especially for an actor who was right in that rich, fully seasoned stage of his craft. Number 10, Lois De Banzie as Immaculata. In Sister Act, Lois De Banzie plays Immaculata, a small role among the nuns. When Sister Act came out in 1992, Lois De Banzie was 62. That is not the age of some newly discovered face. That is the age of someone who has been in the business long enough to know exactly what to do inside a frame. Lois De Banzie was born in 1930 in Glasgow, then moved to New York when she was young. Her first job in America was not on stage at all, but as a copywriter for Vogue and then Time. After that, she fully turned to acting and followed the path of a supporting actress with a very strong stage background. Her biggest achievement came with Mornings at 7, where she earned a Tony nomination and won a Drama Desk Award. After that, she kept working steadily on Broadway and television and in film with movies that audiences from that era would recognize right away, like Annie Tootsie, Arachnophobia, Addams Family Values, and then Sister Act. Lois De Banzie kept her public life pretty private, and the saddest part of her story came at the end. Lois De Banzie died on April 3, 2021, in Green Bay, California, at the age of 90. The family only announced it afterward, and the cause was never made public. To me, Lois De Banzie is memorable for exactly that reason. Number 11. A.J. Johnson / Adrienne Joy Johnson as LaWanda. Not everybody who passed through Sister Act stayed with Hollywood in the same old way. A.J. Johnson is a really clear example of that. In the movie, she plays LaWanda, one of the faces from Dolores' old stage world in the opening part. A.J. Johnson was born in 1963 in New Jersey. When Sister Act came out in 1992, she was 29. This year, she is 63. Before and after this movie, she also appeared in School Days House Party, The Inkwell, and Baby Boy, which is enough to say she was never just some face who drifted through the screen and vanished. What is even more memorable is the turn her life took. A.J. Johnson graduated from Spelman with high honors, studied chemistry and psychology, and a lot of sources also describe her as being on a pre-med path before she chose the arts. But life pushed her in a different direction. Oprah shared that her mother died of cancer when she was only 17. Later on, A.J. Johnson said she also lost her father as an adult, and losing both parents is what made her start looking at health, mental well-being, and healing as a calling, not just a personal concern. That is why she gradually stepped away from chasing acting full-time and moved into fitness, wellness, and life coaching, because in her view, the entertainment world can very easily swallow people whole. By now, A.J. Johnson's name is tied much more closely to the A.J. Zone and the Life Therapy program. Essence reported that she holds degrees and certifications in lifestyle counseling, personal training, nutrition, and fat burning, and that her clients have included Gabrielle Union, Tisha Campbell, Nicole Ari Parker, and Whoopi Goldberg. That is a life worth admiring. Number 12, Jim Beaver as Clarkson's. Jim Beaver plays Clarkson. When Sister Act came out in 1992, Jim Beaver was 42. This year, he is 76. He was never the kind of actor pushed early on as a big star. He is a stage guy, a writer, somebody who spent a whole lot of years doing the work, then gradually became a familiar face to audiences through Deadwood Supernatural Justified and The Boys. He is also a former United States Marine who served in Vietnam, and that background alone gave him a kind of weathered depth that sets him apart from a lot of people in the same business. But the heaviest and darkest part of Jim Beaver's life was not on screen. In 2004, his wife Cecily Adams died of cancer. The Los Angeles Times and Variety both confirmed that she died in Los Angeles after a short fight with the illness. After her death, Jim Beaver wrote Life's That Way, a memoir that Penguin Random House describes as growing out of the emails he sent to family and friends during the hardest stretch of his life. What makes that story hurt even more is that just before Cecily was diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer, their daughter had just been diagnosed with autism. In one very short stretch of time, he had to face illness, grief, and single fatherhood all at once. And just when it seemed like that should have been enough, life still was not done with him. People and Entertainment Weekly reported that in early 2026, Carrie Ann Fleming, Jim Beaver's later life partner, died at 51 from complications related to breast cancer. In what he shared afterward, Beaver said Cecily's death in 2004 had nearly destroyed him, and then he had to go through that same kind of heartbreak all over again. Number 13, Nicky Katt as waiter. I want to close this list with Nicky Katt because his life carries a very particular kind of sadness. In Sister Act, he is just a waiter, a role so small that if you blink, you might miss him. Nicky Katt was born in 1970. When Sister Act came out in 1992, he was 22. Back then, he was still a young actor coming up from child acting, and only later did he really break through as a distinctive character actor in Dazed and Confused Boston Public Boiler Room, A Time to Kill Insomnia, and School of Rock. What makes Nicky Katt memorable is that he never had that polished shine. He was the kind of actor born to play dangerous, strange guys, the kind who sometimes make people a little uneasy, but who always knew how to make a character feel more alive by one extra beat. The Guardian mentioned that Richard Linklater once said that when they were casting Dazed and Confused, most actors wanted the bigger role, but Nicky picked a smaller one and turned it into something memorable all by himself. Robert Rodriguez also remembered him as somebody who always came in very prepared, carrying ideas, props, comic timing, and a way of making a character jump right off the screen. Nicky Katt's private life stayed pretty quiet. EW reported that he was married to Annie Morse from 1999 to 2001, then never remarried. His last screen role came in 2018 on Casual. Then in April 2025, Nicky Katt died at the age of 54. Afterward, his family confirmed that he had been quietly battling depression and died by suicide. Before I wrap this up, let me save 5 little Sister Act stories for the people who are still here. The cast section has been heavy enough, so here I want to shift the mood a little lighter, more fun, but still full of details that are really worth remembering. Fact 1. The behind the scenes on this movie was a lot more tense than people think. Entertainment Weekly once wrote that Whoopi Goldberg clashed pretty hard with Disney while making the film, to the point that Carrie Fisher had to come in and help rewrite her dialogue. Honestly, that feels kind of fitting, because Dolores was never the type of character who just stands still and lets somebody else place her somewhere. Fact 2. The movie we remember today almost ended up being a completely different movie. Sister Act was originally developed for Bette Midler, but she turned the role down. Then Whoopi came in, and the rest pretty much became history. Fact 3. One detail I really like is that Sister Act used Bill Nunn in the exact opposite way from the rest of the movie. While everybody else is singing, talking, and making a big noisy mess, he is the one keeping everything grounded and in line. That is what gives the whole story something to hold on to. Fact 4. If you love old American television, this one is pretty fun. Sister Act has a few very unexpected links to sci-fi. Whoopi is tied to Star Trek Max Grodenchik, later became Rom on Deep Space Nine, and both Michael Durrell and Nicky Katt have connections to V. A singing nun movie somehow looping around to sci-fi, that is exactly the kind of thing only American movies from that era could pull off. Fact 5. And Whoopi made exactly the right bet. Sister Act finished 1992 with more than $139.6 million in North America, while Ladybugs made only around $14.8 million. Some stars just take roles. Whoopi knew how to spot one. Just think about it, a movie about a lounge singer, a mafia hit, a convent, and a church choir somehow became one of the most beloved films of the early 90s. Hollywood back then really did know how to take risks. They were willing to take an idea that sounded almost impossible, then turn it into a movie with laughs, music, heart, and most importantly, faces that people still want to look back on more than 30 years later. And when you look back at the cast today, what stays with you is not just the surprise of how far time has gone. It is also a little sadness, a little gratitude, and a whole lot of affection for a period in American film that still knew how to make movies that were both unusual and decent in exactly this way. That is why I make this channel too, so movies like Sister Act and the faces that made them what they were do not drift away too easily. If you believe masterpieces like that deserve to be remembered forever, subscribe to the channel. And before you go, tell me this. Do you think Hollywood today could still make a movie as strange and charming as Sister Act?